Romance of Sui in Tang Dynasties, Chapter 69.
The chapter opens with a poem about the Wang family, setting this tone of fleeting wealth. It uses the phrase clouds and rain to talk about intimacy, which suggests these things are impermanent.
It's like the author is warning us right away. Don't get too comfortable. Wealth, favor, safety, it's all temporary. And to prove this, the text immediately throws two contrasting anecdotes at us before we even meet the emperor.
It feels like it's trying to calibrate our moral compass.
Or maybe break it so we understand the world we're entering.
Okay, let's look at these cases because they are wild. The first one involves a guy named Qin Junzhao.
Qin Junzhao. He's a young man visiting the capital, and a friend, a guy named Deng, throws him a farewell party.
Seems normal enough.
It does, until the friend brings out a beautiful young servant girl and says, look, I bought this girl for an official. Since you're going that way, can you just transport her on your boat?
Which is a terrible idea. I mean, you're putting a young man and a beautiful woman on a boat for a long journey. It sounds like the setup for a disaster.
He tries to say no, Qin Junzhao. He knows the optics are bad, but he eventually agrees. So picture the scene. They're traveling on the river. It gets incredibly hot. The mosquitoes are swarming.
Ugh, that kind of humidity that makes everyone miserable.
Exactly. And to protect her from the insects, he lets her sleep inside his mosquito net.
That is intimate. A mosquito net isn't a separate room. It's a small, enclosed space.
It's a pressure cooker of temptation.
Yeah.
But here's the twist. When he delivers her to the official, he naturally assumes the worst.
Of course.
He thinks they were in a net together for days. Something happened. But the official waits 3 days, checks on the girl, and realizes she is untouched.
Wow.
He comes back and thanks Qin, calling him a true gentleman.
So in this case, resisting temptation saves his reputation. He acts with honor and he's rewarded. It's a straightforward moral victory.
If the text stopped there, we'd think, okay, be good and good things happen. But then the author hits us with Case B, the daughter of Marquis Jiu. This flashes way back to the Shang dynasty.
And she is beautiful, but incredibly solemn. Very serious.
And she's offered to the tyrant, King Zhu.
King Zhu is the archetype of the bad emperor, right? The guy famous for wine pools and...
Wine pools, forests of meat, the absolute worst. And this woman, the Marquis's daughter, she hates lewdness. She's virtuous. She refuses to engage in the king's wild parties.
She maintains her dignity. Now, if she were in Qin Junzao's story, she'd be praised for that.
But she's not in Qin's story. She's with a tyrant. King Zhu flies into a rage because she's no fun. He doesn't just kill her, he executes her.
Okay.
And then he takes her father, Marquis Jiu, and has him pickled.
Pickled. Wait, you mean like made into mincemeat?
Literally minced and brined. It's a horrific, grotesque punishment. And when another noble tries to complain, King Zhu has him cooked and dried into jerky.
That is stomach-turning. But I see what the author's doing. You have two people who practiced extreme self-control. Qin resists the girl. He's a hero. The Marquis's daughter resists the king, and she and her father are turned into food.
It's terrifying. And the source explicitly says there is no explaining the likes and dislikes regarding men and women. Your survival depends entirely on the mood of the person holding the sword. And that is the perfect foundation for Emperor Taizong and his new favorite concubine.
And this is where the story shifts to the origin of one of the most famous women in history, Wu Zixin, or as she's called here, Wu Miniyang. Now, I thought I knew her story, but the source has some, let's call them unique details about her birth.
Oh, the folklore aspect just takes over here. So her father is Wu Shitu, a former official who retired because he didn't like politics, which is ironic considering his daughter.
Very ironic.
He and his wife, Lady Yang, didn't have a son. So Lady Yang finds him a concubine named Lady Zhang.
Standard practice for the time, sure. But the conception story, that's where I had to reread the text.
It is bizarre. Lady Zhang is sleeping one day. Wu Shitu walks in, sees her, feels that she looks deeply asleep, and he just gives her a push to wake her up. That push, just the physical act of shoving her, is what leads to the pregnancy.
He pushed her awake, and boom, she's pregnant. It makes her seem almost accidental.
Or, like, her existence wasn't born of passion, but of a jarring awakening. It marks her as different. But then it gets mystical. While she's pregnant, the father has a dream. He dreams that Li Mi visits him.
We need to pause on Li Mi. He wasn't just some guy. He was a famous rebel leader who fought against the Tang founders.
He was the Tang dynasty's arch rival, the guy who almost beat them.
So in the dream, Li Mi asks to borrow a place to stay for 10 years and promises to repay the favor later.
That's huge. The implication is that this Baby girl, Wu Maniyang, is actually the reincarnation, or at least the spiritual vessel, of a rebel leader who hates the Tang dynasty,
She's a sleeper agent from the spirit world.
a disruptor. She's here to settle a score. And when she's born, the mother, Lady Zhang, dies from complications. So this child enters the world through tragedy and these supernatural bargains.
And she grows up fast. The text says she was named Meiniang, meaning charm or beauty, but she wasn't sitting around doing embroidery.
Not at all. By age 12 or 13, she's described as enchanting. The source even notes that she was already historically active. It mentions she was intimate with her classmates. She wasn't the solemn, virtuous type like the daughter of Marquis Jiu. She knew how to use her charm.
She was bold. And eventually she gets selected for the palace, and this is where we see why Taizong, the emperor, falls for her.
And it links back to that earlier lesson about what men want. Emperor Taizong is a conqueror. He spent his life on battlefields. He's used to everyone bowing and being terrified of him.
Even the women in his harem are likely very submissive.
Right. Very careful. Then comes Wu Manyan. The text says she didn't know about palace taboos. When the emperor approached her, she didn't cower. She treated him like a familiar friend.
She hugged him, kissed him immediately.
She was affectionate, direct, physical. And the source says Taizong had never experienced this kind of scene. He was completely disarmed. It wasn't just lust, it was relief. Finally, someone who treated him like a man, not a monument.
It's that chaotic nature of attraction again. Being solemn got the Marquis's daughter killed. Being bold and rule-breaking got Wu Meiniang the keys to the empire.
But while the emperor is having the time of his life, his actual family, his sons, are tearing the kingdom apart.
This is where the story turns into Game of Thrones. The source shifts focus to the sons of the late Empress Zhengxin. You have the Crown Prince, Zheng Qian, and his brother, Wei Wangtai.
Let's look at the Crown Prince first, Qin Can. The text mentions he has a foot ailment, and that really seems to play into his psychology.
In a martial culture like the Tang, that would make him incredibly insecure.
Absolutely. He feels weak, so he acts out. He loves hunting, loud music, ignoring his duties, and he's paranoid because he sees his younger brother, Wei Wangtai, getting all the emperor's favor.
And Wei Wangtai is the dangerous one, the smart brother.
He is. Talented, literate, charming, but also manipulative. He's secretly gathering cliques to replace his brother. Qin Can realizes this and decides, I have to strike first.
So the Crown Prince launches a coup.
A really sloppy one. He hires assassins, bribes palace guards. But as often happens, the plot is discovered. Taizong finds out his own son wants to kill him.
He crushes it. Zheng Qian is deposed, demoted to a commoner, so now the throne is open. And this is where we get maybe the most shocking scene in the whole chapter.
Wei Wangtai, the smart brother, makes his move. He sees his chance. He throws himself into Emperor Taizong's arms, crying, clinging to him, and he makes this promise that's supposed to sound noble.
What does he say?
He says, Father, if you make me the heir, I promise that when I die, I will kill my own son so that I can pass the throne to my younger brother, Jin Wang.
Wait, pause. He says, I will kill my own son. He thinks this is a selling point.
He's trying to prove he has zero ambition for his own lineage. He's saying, look how much I love my brother, I'd end my own bloodline for him. He thinks this shows ultimate selflessness.
It's just, it stops you cold. He's offering up the murder of his own child as a bargaining chip. It shows how completely the lust for power has just rotted him.
And the scary part? It almost works. Taizong is emotional, heartbroken over his first son's betrayal. He's actually touched by this at first. He tells his ministers, look how much he loves his brother.
He's desperate to believe his family still loves each other.
Thankfully, there's a voice of reason in the room. Minister Chu Suiliang. I think of him as the designated reality check.
He steps up and basically says, Your Majesty, you have lost the plot.
Pretty much. His argument is cold logic, he says. A man willing to kill his own son cannot be trusted. It goes against basic human nature. If he does that, do you really think he's going to let his younger brother Jin Wang survive?
No way. Jin Wang is a dead man walking.
Exactly. And that snaps the emperor out of it.
Yeah.
He realizes he's surrounded by monsters. And this leads to a total breakdown. I mean, imagine you're Taizong. You've conquered China. You're a legend. But your oldest son tried to kill you, and your second son is a psychopath.
The stress is too much. The text describes this visceral scene where Taizong is in his bedroom with Wu Meiniang and another consort. He's just recounting all the treachery, and he loses hope. He hits the mattress and says, what is the point of living?
And he doesn't just say it. He throws himself on the bed, draws his sword, and tries to stab himself.
This is the emperor of the Tang dynasty, the most powerful man on earth trying to end it all. And who saves him? It's not the guards or the ministers.
It's Wu Mingyang and the other consort, Shu Huifei. They physically wrestle the knife away from him. They hold him back. And this is pivotal. It's the women, the outsiders to the bloodline, who save the patriarch from the grief caused by his own sons.
And Wu Meinyang doesn't just stop him, she gives him the solution.
She's incredibly pragmatic. She says essentially, look, the unworthy one is gone. The plotter is dangerous. Why not choose the benevolent one?
She's talking about the third brother, Jin Wang, Li Zi.
Right. She points out that he is the only safe option. Taizong agrees, composes himself, and goes to the court. He asks the ministers, who should I pick? And everyone shouts, Jin Wang, because he's known for being kind and filial.
He's the safe bet, 16 years old. Nice. Not plotting to kill anyone. But there's a huge layer of irony here we have to talk about.
Oh, it's the biggest irony in Chinese history. Wu Mingyang pushes for Jin Wang to be the heir because he is benevolent and soft. But historically, that softness is exactly what allows her to eventually dominate him.
She isn't just picking an heir for the emperor.
She is handpicking her future puppet.
That is 4D chess right there. So the succession is settled, the emperor calms down, we even get a brief moment of wholesomeness. But the chapter doesn't end in the palace. It cuts away.
It does. It transitions to a character who seems completely disconnected, but who really represents the emotional core of the story. A man named Ma Zhu.
Ma Zhu, a totally different vibe. He's not a prince. He's a nobody.
He's a poor scholar, an orphan. He's brilliant, but he's stuck in a low-level job. He's frustrated, and like many frustrated intellectuals, he loves to drink.
So he eventually quits his job and wanders to the capital, ending up at the Xinfeng market. And the text paints this really cinematic scene. A dusty tavern full of travelers. Ma Zhu is drinking alone, and he sets up 2 memorial tablets on his table.
It's such a striking image. He's drinking with ghosts. One tablet is for Li Ling, a Han Dynasty general forced to surrender. The other is for Sun Bin, the strategist who had his legs cut off by a jealous rival.
Why those 2 guys?
Because they represent wasted genius and unfair fate. Li Ling was a hero abandoned by his emperor. Sun Bin was a genius mutilated by a colleague. Ma Zhu starts drinking and crying, yelling at these tablets. He asks Li Ling, how could you let yourself be humiliated? He asks Sun Bin, why did you trust the wrong people?
He's not really yelling at them, is he? He's yelling at his own life.
He's projecting his own pain. He feels he has the talent of a general, but no one sees him. He describes himself as having the intensity of an assassin, but he has no target, no outlet. It's profound intellectual loneliness.
It creates such a stark contrast. In the palace, you have princes with everything, power, wealth, and they throw it away on murderous plots. Then you have Ma Zhu in a tavern who has nothing but talent, crying because he can't serve the country.
That is the tragedy of the era. The princes have the throne but no character. Ma Zhu has the character but no throne. It connects back to that opening theme. Whether you're a prince, a concubine, or a poor scholar, your fate feels incredibly fragile.
It's a world where character matters, but timing and connections matter more.
Meanwhile, just picture this. You're in a tavern, it's loud, it's crowded, right in the middle of a big spring festival, and there's a scholar in the corner sitting all alone. He looks a bit rough around the edges. He's just been gifted a bottle of rare imperial vintage wine. And what does he do? He takes this incredibly expensive gift, pours a good amount of it into a dirty clay noodle basin, and washes his feet in it.
Which is, I mean, a shocking waste of good alcohol, especially for that time period.
It gets worse. After he scrubs his feet, he picks up that basin, sediment, dirt, whatever, and he drinks the rest of it.
Oh.
Every last drop.
It is grotesque. But in the context of Sui Tangyani, which is what we're looking at today, that isn't just shock value, that's a job interview.
That is one way to make an impression. We are looking at the court of Emperor Taizong of the Tang Dynasty. But, we're not digging into the wars or the tax codes. We are looking at the clash between the meritocratic rise of the Tang and the lingering, almost ghostly luxury of the fallen Sui dynasty.
It's a fascinating study in contrasts. The source material gives us 3 really distinct vignettes today. First, we have Ma Zhu, the mad student with the wine you just mentioned.
Right.
Then we get a surprisingly athletic moment with the widowed Empress Xiao.
And that leads into the final part.
Exactly. A debate about the cost of light that I think reveals the central tension of the whole era.
So let's start with the foot drinker. Who is this guy, Ma Zhu, and why is he acting like this? The source drops him into a really specific situation. He's staying with a general, right?
Right. He's a house guest of General Chang He. And it's a classic odd couple setup. Chang, he is a military man, all brawn, no books. The text explicitly calls him a martial officer without learning.
Okay, so he's got a problem.
He's got a big problem. He has to submit a policy report to Emperor Taizong.
Because Taizong was that kind of emperor, he wanted feedback from everyone, no matter their rank.
Exactly. He wanted a pro and con list about his government, what's working, what isn't. And Chang, he is panicking. He can fight, but he can't write. So he asks his house guest, Ma Zhu, to ghostwrite it for him. Ma Zhu just, knocks out 20 specific policy points effortlessly.
And while he's waiting for the emperor's reaction to this report he didn't even write, he gets bored.
And a bored genius is a dangerous thing. It's the Double Third Festival, basically a massive spring carnival. Ma Zhu wanders into a tavern to drink village wine, the cheap stuff. But a palace eunuch spots him and recognizes him, or at least recognizes his type. The eunuch calls him a Guangsheng.
A mad student.
Yeah. It implies this sort of brilliance that just refuses to follow social rules, and the eunuch actually gifts him a bottle of imperial grape wine. Now, we have to pause on this. This is not like, modern wine from a supermarket. In the Tang, grape wine was Western, exotic, incredibly precious.
So this is like someone handing you a bottle of the finest champagne while you're sitting in a dive bar.
Precisely. And Ma Zhu fails the manners test spectacularly. He opens it, has a little bit, but then he sees the noodle basin. The text calls it a clay basin for mixing noodles. It's not fine china. He pours this liquid gold in and washes his feet. The crowd just turns on him. They're screaming at him for wasting it.
But his defense is what's so interesting. It isn't just, I'm drunk, who cares? He finds a philosophical loophole.
He does. He quotes the classic of filial piety. He says, "Body, hair, and skin are received from parents. I dare not damage them." So his logic is, why should I flatter my mouth, the top of my body, but neglect my feet at the bottom? They both came from my parents.
So his feet deserve the good stuff just as much as his tongue does.
Basically, yes. It's a democratization of his own body. And then the real power move. He drinks the dregs. He drinks the foot water. It's a signal that he is completely unconstrained by social norms or, basic hygiene. He's pure raw intellect.
And right after this display, soldiers burst in.
Ma Zhu is here. Now, normally when soldiers rush into a tavern after you've made a scene...
You expect to be arrested?
Right, but they're not there to arrest him. The emperor had read the report. And Taizong was smart enough to know General Chang. He didn't write those 20 points. Chang, he fessed up, said it was Ma Zhu. So Ma Zhu is summoned to the Wungong Hall, probably still reeking of wine and feet, to debate the emperor.
And this is where that meritocracy part kicks in. The smell didn't matter.
Not at all. The text says his words flowed like a torrent. He debates and analyzes every point with incredible depth. The emperor recognizes his 5 carts of learning, a phrase that just means he's massively well-read, and Ma Zhu is instantly hired as an imperial censor.
What about poor General Chang He?
He gets rewarded too. 20 bolts of silk just for finding the guy. It sets a very clear tone for the Tang administration. We don't care if you're a mad student who washes his feet in wine. If your ideas are good, you're in.
It really emphasizes that gritty, results-oriented culture.
Yeah.
But then the source material just pivots completely. Yeah. We leave this world of policy and dirty taverns, and we shift to the Fengwei Palace, a much quieter, more intimate scene. It involves Taizong and a relic from the past, Empress Xiao.
This transition is so important. We're moving from the rising sun of the Tang to the setting sun of the Sui. Empress Xiao was the wife of the Sui emperor, the dynasty the Tang overthrew. So she's living in the palace as a high-status captive, essentially.
So Taizong is walking by, he hears laughter, and he peeks in. He finds a group of maids watching someone on a swing.
And we need to be clear about the swing. This isn't a gentle playground thing. This is an athletic performance. The text describes the person on the swing doing these incredible stunts. The maids are even calling out names for the moves.
Butterfly threading through flowers, red phoenix facing the sun.
And my favorite, hungry eagle striking its prey.
Which sounds like a high dive, a big swoop down.
It does, and the big reveal is that the person doing all this is Empress Xiao. And the key detail here is her age. She's over 50, but she's moving with the grace of a purple swallow. Taizong is hiding behind a screen, just peeping.
He sounds completely captivated by her.
He calls it half-immortal joy. He's seeing this vitality in someone who should, by all rights, be in mourning or just quietly retired. But the moment he steps out from behind the screen, the spell breaks. Empress Xiao jumps down, totally embarrassed. She says she's decayed and was just trying to relieve her boredom.
That switch from hungry eagle to decayed old woman, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big happens the second a man in power shows up. It feels like a survival tactic.
Absolutely. She has to play the part of the harmless widow. She can't be seen as too powerful or too vital. But Taizong steps closer. He takes her hand, and he notices a scent. Jiuan incense.
Which was brought from the Turkic Kogan, wasn't it?
Yes. So it immediately marks her as exotic, luxurious, and connected to this history that Taizong has only recently conquered. And this really sets the stage for the final, and I think most critical part of this chapter, the Lantern Banquet.
Right. This takes place that same evening. It's the Cold Food Festival, or King Ming. Taizong throws a party to view the lanterns, and he invites Empress Xiao to sit right next to him.
Which is a very deliberate move. And then he asks her a question that feels a little like a trap. He asks, so how does my little party here compare to what the Sui emperor used to do?
He's fishing for a compliment. He's the new guy. He wants to hear that he's doing it better, that his dynasty is better.
He wants validation. But Empress Xiao, at first, she just dodges. She stays silent. When he presses her, she drops this devastating comparison. She talks about the difference between a founding lord and a ruined country's lord.
And then she describes the Sui version of a lantern festival. And honestly, it sounds less like a party and more like an industrial fire hazard.
It's spectacular excess. She describes these fire mountains. They would build dozens of volcano-like structures in the courtyard.
What were they burning in them?
Cartloads of sandalwood. Now, sandalwood is incredibly expensive. You use it for incense, for carvings, not for bonfires. The Sui burned it by the ton. And if the flames got low, they'd pour jiajian on it.
Which the notes describe as a kind of aromatic fluid, almost like a perfumed napalm.
Basically, the flames would shoot up dozens of feet high, and the scent would travel for miles. It was an assault on the senses. But the real kicker, the detail that truly shows the gap between the two dynasties, is the lighting inside the palace.
Right. Taizong is just using regular old oil lamps. What did the Sui use?
She tells him the Sui didn't use fire or oil indoors. They used pearls. Night luminous pearls.
You mean actual glowing stones?
Yes. She says they were huge, 3 to 7 inches in diameter. They hung 120 of them from the ceiling, and she says they made the hall as bright as day.
So, no smoke, no flickering, just this cold, clean, unbelievably expensive light.
Exactly. And then she points to Taizong's lamp. She says, I only smell the smoke and soot. She actually calls it smelly and irritating. It's such a direct sensory attack. Your palace stinks of oil. My husband's palace glowed with pure light.
That is a savage burn. But she frames it as a warning, doesn't she? She's not just bragging.
No, she's very clear. She says, these are the things of a ruined country. I hope your majesty avoids them. She's connecting the dots for him. The Sui burned sandalwood mountains and bought glowing pearls, and that is why they are a fallen dynasty, and you are emperor. Your smelly oil lamps are sustainable.
And Taizong seems to get it. On one level, he says, luxury and thrift are indeed different.
He accepts the intellectual argument. He knows she's right. But then the source gives us this little twist that is so revealing of human nature. Immediately after agreeing with her, he leans in and whispers to her.
Those night luminous pearls. Don't worry, I'll get some for you later.
Exactly.
He completely missed the point. Or he chose to ignore it.
It's the hubris of power, isn't it? He thinks, well, the Sui failed because they were corrupt or incompetent. I'm virtuous. I'm the great Taizong who hires men like Ma Zhu, so I can have the pearls without the failure.
He thinks he can have his cake and eat it, too. Have his frugal oil lamps and his glowing luxury pearls.
Precisely. And there's one more layer here, a silent observer in this scene, Wu Karen, the future Empress Wu Zetian.
She's just a low-ranking concubine at this point. A talent, I think.
That's right. And the text notes she's watching Empress Xiao and thinking, she's over 50, but still so charming, she must have seductive tricks.
Well, at the same time, Empress Xiao is looking over at Wu Zetian and thinking, she's beautiful, but she lacks quiet elegance.
It's this generational judgment, the old, refined aristocracy versus the new, raw ambition. And the irony is that Wu Zetian will go on to be more powerful and extravagant than any of them. She's just sitting there, quietly taking notes.
So if you put these three moments together, Ma Zhu, the swing, and the lanterns, you get this really clear narrative about the soul of the Tang dynasty.
It's a study in contrasts, absolutely. You have Ma Zhu washing his feet in wine. That's the rejection of surface manners for raw ability. That's the engine of the Tang's success. That's why they won.
Then you have the swing. That's the lingering vitality of the past. It shows the old ways, the old luxuries still have life in them.
And finally, the lanterns. That's the seduction of that luxury. The realization that even Taizong, the brilliant emperor who hires the foot-washing genius, is still vulnerable to the allure of the night luminous pearl.
It suggests that the meritocracy phase of a dynasty is always fighting a battle against the luxury phase, and Taizong is standing right on that dividing line.
And he thinks he can dance on that line without falling. He thinks he can appreciate the pearls without becoming the Sui emperor.
But history tells us that's a very slippery slope.
It is. The very thing that makes the pearls so attractive, their cost, their rarity, is what drains the treasury and isolates the ruler. Empress Xiao knew that because she lived through the collapse. Taizong only knows it as a theory.
That's a huge difference, knowing something in your head versus knowing it in your bones.
And Ma Zhu represents that cheap oil lamp phase of the dynasty. He's rough, maybe a little smelly, but incredibly effective. The pearls represent the end stage.
So Empress Xiao gives them this explicit warning. Luxury ruins nations. And Taizong's immediate reaction is to promise her that very luxury. It leaves us with a really provocative question, I think. Does knowing that a trap exists actually help you avoid it?
Or does success just convince you that the rules, they don't apply to you? Does power just rewire your brain to think, I can handle it?
Next time you're tempted by the glowing pearl option over the smoky oil utility, it might be worth asking which dynasty you're trying to build. Are you building mountains of fire, or are you washing your feet in the tavern?
Hopefully not the latter in public.
Fair point. But the principle stands.
See you next time.